friends. Welcome to the Creative Impact Podcast. I'm your host, Rachel Caldwell, and I'm so happy you're here. Each episode, I take some time to chat with fellow artists about life, faith, and the impact of the arts.
I wasn't prepared for it, and I was a believer. And up until that point, and this is a really interesting part of my life, in that up until that point, I had sort of just had this really innocent faith, this faith of, oh God, you've given me so much. I've always had opportunity. I was surrounded with opportunity and never wanted for work. Mm-hmm. And then I moved to London and I didn't know how to navigate my faith in rejection at that level.
Happy September, everyone. Can you believe it's already September 1st? I don't know about you, but I'm already looking forward to sweater weather, scarves, and all things fall. For those of us here in Texas, it'll still be a while before those days actually arrive, but I feel like September sort of brings with it the anticipation of fall and what's to come. Another really exciting thing about today's episode is that I have the pleasure of announcing our very first giveaway winner. Be sure to listen at the end of the episode for the announcement. You can become a monthly supporter of the podcast by joining our Patreon community. As a supporter of the podcast, you get access to extra content that is only available for patrons. We post new content regularly for our patrons, including things like a behind-the-scenes look at what goes into creating a podcast, and bonus content from the conversations with guests on the show. You can learn more at creativeimpactpodcast.com/PATREON. My guest for episode 13 of the podcast is the lovely and engaging Lara Bianca Pilcher. This conversation was my first time to meet Lara, but we connected right away, and I know you're going to love her as well. Lara is a British-Australian actress, dancer, singer, writer, and producer who works internationally. In our conversation, you'll hear about Lara's journey from her beginnings in dance to her current ventures, including work as an actress, writer, and podcast host. We talk about life as a freelance artist and the realities of what it looks like to pursue a career in the West End in London. I love Lara's thoughts on reframing rejection and keeping perspective throughout the audition process by focusing on being prepared and continuing to develop as an artist. We chat about Lara's work as a writer for Dance Informa magazine and some of the adventures she's had as the host for the Victorian Dance Festival, or VDF, podcast. She is the founder of Artist House International, a not-for-profit organization. Artist House International uses the tool of creativity to help transform lives through gatherings, outreaches, and an incredible podcast. Lara has a passion for fostering community amongst artists and utilizing the arts as a witness. We talk about how Lara, her husband Andrew, and their children are on mission together as a family. Through her work in ministry, Lara connects artists from all around the world. Enjoy my conversation with Lara Bianca Pilcher. Oh, Lara, thank you so much for being on the podcast.
I'm so honored to be here on the other end.
So for you, it's the morning, right? Tuesday morning?
It's 10 o'clock tomorrow. So I'm in the future talking to you from the future.
That is so crazy. So cool.
Yeah.
Love that.
Pretty cool, isn't it?
Definitely. Well, I'm so glad that we got connected up and wanted to just let you introduce yourself and maybe tell the listeners a little bit about who you are.
Yeah. Well, I'm Lara Bianca Pilcher, and my husband and I moved to Melbourne, Australia not too many years ago. And prior to that, we spent a good part of a decade in London's West End circles. I am It's funny because when you introduce yourself, you put it in order of kind of like if you say actor, singer, dancer, dance becomes
right.
the least important. There's a correct way to do it, but I don't like to do that, but you have to list them. But actor, singer and dancer, as well as a producer and director and a news journalist and a writer. I'm very creative. I love all those things, but I'm not good at visual art. I don't do well with my visual art, unfortunately.
Gotcha. Well, there has to be some area, right?
Not good at that.
You gotta leave something for other people, right? No.
I can't paint. I can't sculpt and I can't paint.
I've never really been super, great at painting or drawing or sculpting either.
I'd like to be. It would probably really help calm me down because I'm for those of you who do the Enneagram, I'm a 3, so I'm really wired.
Yeah.
I'd probably be very good and mindful to calm myself down and just...
Right. I guess writing is probably that way to a degree as well. Writing or...
Not in my head, but it should probably be. It should probably be that.
That's amazing. Yeah, I enjoy the Enneagram as well. I'm a 9, so
Oh, what's a
definitely a
9?
peacemaker. And
Oh,
it's
you're a
very
nicer person than me. I'm just gonna
about that.
to
We just
be
don't
around.
say it.
Let's be real.
Yeah, so funny. But yeah, we like to keep the peace and kind of, make sure everyone's good. And it's fun learning about it because a lot of times you don't necessarily know even what you're feeling or what you're thinking because I tend to think about what other people are feeling or thinking. So I have to really take a second and evaluate, okay, what do I think about this? I don't know.
Oh, I
So,
still think peacemakers are the nicest people in the room.
yeah, it's funny how I can talk to 2 totally different people on very different ends of a spectrum, and they both think that I agree with them. Because, you're just like, so, I understand, So funny. So you want to describe threes a little bit more for those that may not know the Enneagram?
The overarching label on us is that we're achievers. And so, they talk about with Enneagrams that being something means that you tend to get your value from it, but also a sense of purpose. And it's, what kind of is your underlying why? So for me, it's like I get up, I think, what can I achieve today? The bad side of it is that if I don't achieve, that's where you kind of can feel like I don't feel valuable. I don't feel like I'm contributing to the world. Same with like my husband, who's a 2, if he's not helping, he's a helper. He can feel that he's not giving enough to the world. But flip side is you've got to learn to be still for the achievers. So, but achievers are behind a lot of stuff. They tend to be the ones that are like planting something, doing something. It's just very hard to sit still, initiating something.
Initiating new things.
Yeah, all the time. A million sort of plates spinning. And it's hard when you're a mum too, because watching Peppa Pig doesn't feel like I've achieved anything.
So true. That's a great point.
It can quite challenging, but anyway.
Yeah, I'm sure that's definitely a journey for sure, and kind of learning to appreciate those moments.
It's like every day when I pray, I'm like, help me just pull the reins, Lord, and just slow down and breathe. And be okay with not doing as much today, if that's what you want me to do today. So
I'm sure in this season as well, have you guys been more
in
lockdown kind of thing?
We're in 3. I think it's the same globally, although I'm not exactly sure, but we're back into a 3 lockdown at the moment. So we're only allowed out for 4 reasons, like getting medical things or
groceries and things like that.
Yeah. Maybe a walk a day in your local area only. But we're we're back in that, and we're possibly going into a 4, which means nothing. You can get medical things, we're in that place. And everybody's sort of doing different things. We had a little bit of freedom on Wednesday last week, was our last day before we went back into a lockdown, and so I lived like it was my last day on earth. I did everything. I went to the beach, I went to the mountains, I went to a fancy restaurant, I went to McDonald's with my family.
Nice.
We lived like we didn't have limits on our bank account. It was crazy, but it was like really fun.
That sounds so much fun. Yeah, that's a great idea. Yeah. And it's nice when you know that. You're like, okay, I have one more day. What can we do?
To live my life.
Right. Exactly. Yeah. So cool. Yeah. Well, I would love to hear a little bit about your beginnings, where you got started in the arts, and obviously your very, wide range of different art forms that you love. So kind of how that began.
That describes it so well, because I remember straight out, my mum was very creative, and I honor her for that. She put me into ballet from a young age. She wasn't as lucky to have ballet lessons. Her childhood was quite broken. So, I remember her actually coming into my ballet lessons and learning as an adult in my children's ballet class, because she so wanted to have the opportunities that I had in a different generation. And so I grew up doing it. And by the time I got to year 12, which is our final year in Australia, I went straight in. I auditioned and got straight into a dance degree. And through that whole time, I remember being really greedy and being like, I want to be in the acting department and I want to be in the singing department. So I auditioned for the musical and I got a role in that, and I would do the musicals. And then I ended up being the student representative, so I was the leader as well. And I always wanted to do everything. I always wanted to I don't like the word triple threat because it sounds horrible, and you might not be a threat at all. You might not be that talented. Maybe just a triple gift. Like I was very greedy and I wanted to do everything. And so I did. I kind of slowly worked my way through doing that for 3 years. And then straight after that decided I want to do musical theatre. So I did a year of musical theatre training kind of on the top of that.
Mm-hmm.
And then just kept doing private singing lessons that whole time. And
Yeah.
I started a dance studio and that ran for 10 years. And
Oh, wow.
I just wanted to do everything. Through that whole time, actually, I was freelancing as well. So I would audition for things and then, get on planes and fly to America. And, that's how I met Cynthia Newland, who many of the listeners will be aware of.
Yes.
She had a company at the time. Yeah, she was in California at the time.
Oh, that's so great.
I
She's
lived
actually
with
going to
her.
be, so the time that we're recording this, her episode comes out tomorrow for us. So,
and
so it's
she's
going to be really
just-
fun. So they'll be able to look back, hear about her life.
Good. Well, you'll know who Cynthia is, and if you don't, it's the episode before.
Yes.
But Cynthia is just lovely, and we I lived in her home, worked in her dance company at the time, and then we flew to New York to dance in Project Dance Times Square at the beginning, the very beginning of Project Dance. That's where I met Cheryl. And my story is that everyone in the company had this fantastic day to go out and see the Statue of Liberty, which was exciting for me as an Aussie living in America.
Right.
I'm British Australian by nationality. And so I was like, I've never been had an experience like this, but I didn't go. I went to help pack goodie bags. And that, because Cynthia actually was really great. She led by example. She always served.
Mm-hmm.
And so I gave up the sightseeing and went to pack goodie bags and remember feeling like that's what the Lord wanted me to do. But I ended up that day spending a lot of time with Cheryl, and she was like, oh, I have a vision to take this event to Australia. And so right at the beginning of it, I was the first person to take Project Dance to another nation. And as you probably
beautiful.
know now, it's been in many nations globally, and it's been around for a really long time. So this was in 2003.
Okay. Yeah.
And now it's 2020.
Well,
I think
true.
that's right. I think I've got the dates right. So as you can see, it's been a really, really long time. And that's sort of my beginning. And I guess, after all that years of freelancing, I just said to my husband one day, I got married in the process of all of this.
Oh, wow.
Yeah. I said,
did y'all meet through freelancing?
Oh, yes and no. Actually, it was he was in my church, but then I got asked to sing for a carols by the sea, because at Christmas time in Australia, it's summer, so you can be by the sea. So we were singing together, and my husband was playing my husband. My husband now was playing my husband, but
that's so funny. That's awesome.
And then we kind of fell in love through that. And I said to him, I've always wanted to just go to Broadway or West End and just go for it for a while. And so he said, let's do it, which was crazy. Mm-hmm. So we'd been married 3 years, and then we just left and I sold the studio and I went to London.
Wow. So was your studio in Australia?
Yeah. So I left it behind. That was really hard. That was a really tricky journey for me, because I had 200 students, 12 staff, absolutely loved it. And I flew back and forth from London to back to Australia a lot for about 3 years, trying to juggle both, not planning on actually staying in London as long as we did. And then I think God just had other plans, and someone had said to me, your wingspan is a lot broader than you're letting yourself be. And so I kind of laid my older life behind, not easily, and went to London and did the whole West End thing, studied my master's at Andrew Lloyd Webber School, and just went for it for a while. And that's a fun and an easy, but also a very challenging journey.
For sure. Yeah. I'd love to hear more about your freelancing time and maybe some of the highlights, but also some of the challenges. What was that season like?
Yeah. Look, when you first move to, you would relate to any arts hub, whether it's New York or it's London or it's wherever people go, like LA as well. You see these sorts of places in films a lot. Mm-hmm. And so you have a romanticized view of them. And when you first move, it's exactly that. You go around, you look at Big Ben, you get in the red telephone boxes, you get in the black taxis, you do all those things. You go to Buckingham Palace. I remember we bought a car over there and I was driving, and I just went past Buckingham Palace and thought, I'm just trying to get somewhere, and I'm driving past a palace with soldiers.
Right.
And it was really crazy. But tourist London is not living there, London. It's a really different life. Just like New York, you're going to probably live in a tiny apartment, a one-bedroom, because it's so expensive.
So true, yeah.
And you're not going out and seeing those sites a lot. You're kind of in your little apartment, and it's a very, very difficult life, particularly for me, who grew up in the wide open spaces of landscape and beauty. And my husband's British Australian as well. He's got a British passport, and our children are British. They were born there.
Yeah.
So we kind of had a love for both countries, but yeah, it's very hard to live in these tiny inner city apartments. But at the beginning it was exciting because I felt like a big fish in a small pond where I had come from. And when I got to London, I was like, oh, everybody's like me. I'm not that unique. I'm actually really common. There's heaps of people like me. Not, you know what I mean, in a healthy sense. There's lots of performers that really take this seriously and want to make it their life. And that was London, for me. And I loved it. I think you were asking about the challenges of it though, but I was not prepared at the beginning of that journey for what kind of rejection I'd face, because a lot of artists, if they come from another city where they might be rarer, you just go from opportunity to opportunity. And I'd also been freelancing and traveling the world at that point and on contract work. But to go into the West End of London and kind of come in and try and get onto West End straight away, I mean, you have to work, you have to tread the boards for a while.
Right.
You need to meet casting directors. You need to be kind of networking a lot. It's kind of who knows you as well as who you know. So a little bit, you might be very good and you might go for an audition and you might do okay, but they will probably go with somebody that is known and that they have some kind of connection with over you if that's the case.
That makes sense.
So, you know, you don't know, you don't hear why. Sometimes you just don't have the right look, you're not the right weight, but just all of that kind of rejection is quite challenging. And I wasn't prepared for it, and I was a believer. And up until that point, and this is a really interesting part of my life, in that up until that point, I had sort of just had this really innocent faith, this faith of, oh God, you know, you've given me so much. I've always had opportunity. I was surrounded with opportunity and never wanted for work. And then I moved to London and I didn't know how to navigate my faith in rejection at that level.
Yeah.
There's no class that I had taken to prepare me for that. And I'm talking like when I was young too, so I'd get in there and I'd spend absolutely months working on an audition, go in for the first round, get a call back, pin so much hope on it. Imagine what my life would be like if I actually had this thing, start looking at real estate of where I have to move to for whatever.
Right.
And then you go and you do it and you get, you know, cut in the callback, but the cut of the callback, and you're just like, it takes the wind out of your sails and you just don't know how to navigate that at the beginning. But after time, I sort of realized that, you know, not to take auditions so seriously, and not to pin everything on it. And when you do get the success, it's like, well, that's a blessing, rather than I've pinned my whole hopes on it. There's been a huge journey there that you might want to ask me another day, because it's huge to get to the point where I can go in and treat an audition just like part of my work, and a blessing to actually have an audition.
That is super huge. That's really hard not to, you know, just put everything into that. And like you said, start just envisioning life that way. I, you know, can definitely relate to that at times in my life too. And it's difficult, but that's so beautiful to get to the point where you're seeing it as a blessing and just, you know, kind of being more open-handed with it. That's super incredible. I love that. Yeah. So for people that may be walking through that right now, you know, they're really pushing hard, trying to pursue a career in the arts, and they're facing that rejection, you know, is there any, I guess, word of encouragement that you would want to give in relation to that?
Yeah, absolutely. It's what's the key, has been the key for me, is realizing that when you're in a city that doesn't have a lot of its existing opportunities, you have the opportunity to create your own stuff. There is so much you can be doing, collaborating with others, thinking, breathing for a day and stopping kind of looking to others for opportunity and actually saying, I want to do something and doing it. I think that's really important. You know, whatever city, but if you're in an arts hub and you're going in and you're, you know, going hard for like those kind of places, some people are really blessed and they do get, like, as we say, a break straight away, and they go from job to job. But my revelation of seeing that firsthand is even those that have gone from job to job have moments where they're doing massage work because they've got 6 months where they're not in a contract.
Mm-hmm.
It's so normal and it's so okay and it's so natural and completely fine. But for me, I got to a point where if I got an audition, I treat it as actually a performance, and I should already, up until that audition, be ready for it. So I'll get it maybe 2 days notice, but the whole time that I don't have an audition, I'm just working on my skills. I'm doing my singing lessons. I'm getting my audition folio ready and not keeping songs in it 10 years ago that are not my casting anymore.
Yeah.
I'm doing a dance class, I'm listening to, at the moment, lots of Zoom talks, casting directors, and I'm working on my marketing as a performer, because so much of it is the relationships that you make.
Mm-hmm.
That kind of thing, it consumes my day, and I'm so happy doing that, so that when an audition comes, it's like, great, a great opportunity to perform, and then I forget about it and move on. And if they say you got the job, great. And if they don't, that's fine. It's really normal.
Right.
I've been in the casting seat too, where, I have to choose from 20 actors and they're all really good and any one of them could have done it.
Mm-hmm.
And that's, having sat in that seat and looking and thinking, I actually don't know who I would choose. They're all equally good. I just have to almost go eeny, meeny, miny, mo.
Uh-huh.
When you see that, you kind of go, oh, this is actually a little bit sometimes of just right place at the right time. You can call it divine intervention, whatever.
Yeah.
But yeah, it's tricky and it's challenging, but there's so much you can be doing, whether it's creating your own stuff, and you should be as a creative, whether you're in a job or not, you should be as a discipline creating. And then on the flip side, just preparing yourself to be the best that you can, even without opportunity.
Yeah, that's beautiful.
So those are the challenges that you've got to keep going. I heard a saying recently, there's a lot of talented artists, but there are not very many ready talented artists or prepared talented artists. And I think that's a real key. And I think I want to be the ready, prepared, talented artist.
That's so good. That is so good. And it's great because
really
it's practical too, steps that people can take right now and not feel like you're just waiting for that perfect moment or opportunity. Yeah.
Yeah. You're never waiting. Yeah. You're never waiting. Like it's a really bad mindset and I did have it for a while. You're never waiting by the phone.
Mm-hmm.
You're always initiating something creative, whether you're journaling and it's just your morning pages, which I don't do, by the way. I'm not much of a morning person. I'm normally writing a script for myself or collaborating or doing something like that. Doing my own work on film, recording my own scenes with other actors, or creating a choreography or directing a musical or whatever it's doing, just something else that keeps your juices flowing.
Yeah, that's great. Yeah. Keep that inspiration. And
yeah.
So I know you mentioned that you are a journalist as well. So how did you get into that?
This is the funniest story because it's a real God story actually, because I was just home one day and I got a call from the founder of the magazine that I work for, and it's basically Dance Informa magazine, USA and Australia. It's in both nations. And I had met the founder years before, at the beginning when I was producing Project Dance Sydney. I'd met the founder.
Oh, okay, yeah.
So years and years ago, and we hadn't had a lot to do with each other. But then out of the blue, she just rang me up and said, you wouldn't want to do a day a week working for us as a news journalist, would you? And she told me what was involved. And I was like, wow, this is really left field. I don't see myself, in that. But it takes somebody that knows the industry or the biz and needs to know what's going on in the industry. So it really is best to be somebody that's really immersed in it and kind of has their ear to the ground. And I prayed about it, and it was exactly the money that we needed in our account in that time, that we were a little bit short to kind of make all our ends meet. And I could do it remotely, because writing, you can do it from anywhere remotely these days. And so I said yes, and I became a news journalist. And from there, I got so many fun opportunities, from interviewing people on the red carpet to becoming a podcast host for the Victorian Dance podcast, which is really exciting, interviewing people all over the world that are in the heart of the industry. And just lots of things, like lots of really exciting opportunities. I'm on so many red carpets, and I'm writing every week, like what's happening in the US or Australia or wherever. We are going to launch in the UK at some point as well.
Okay, cool.
But it's really fun, because it's just another kind of string to my bow that keeps my creative juices going. And I'm already trying to stay in the know, so it kind of helps to do this because then I'm even more in the know.
Right, exactly. Kind of
what's happening.
Almost forces you to stay in the know, but that's great because it's something you're passionate about and want to do anyways.
So passionate about. I love it. Yeah.
So that, I guess, was that what led you into podcasting?
Yeah. For the Victorian Dance Festival, which is a different, it's brought to you by Dance Informa and Energetics. So they somewhat produce it. So that's how I got into that particular role. But I'd already been doing the Artist House International podcast.
Oh, okay. So that one started first.
Having known how to do it, as you know, it's a bit of a skill within itself.
Right.
And I always loved talking. I mean,
that's great.
I'm happy with the microphone and give me some topic and I'll just make up a whole whatever about it. That's partly, being an actor and being able to improvise as well. But I don't mind it. I'm very happy to have a microphone in my face.
That's great. That's perfect.
Yeah. So that kind of one thing led to another. It's funny because sometimes you're doing something that I don't like to sacred secular divide, but you're doing something that maybe is in the kind of box of this would be more ministry or unpaid or something like that. And it sometimes leads to something else that might be paid. Not always, but in my case, several times, that's what's happened.
Yeah, that's so interesting.
I've ended up with an opportunity and a job out of something I was doing, serving in the sense of ministry. So it's connections, it's relationships, it's who you know. Yeah, it's really good.
Yeah, that is so good. And that's actually a good kind of intro into talking about Artist House International. And so I know that's something that you and your husband built, is correct?
Yeah, this started, we were walking, at the time we were living in the West End in London, like literally living there around the corner from Oxford Street in a tiny little 1-bedroom basement flat, which I thought would be good. It's actually the servants' quarters where the servants used to live in those big old manor houses. Yeah. It's not that nice because you get no sunlight. But we'd pop up, up to the ground from in our little burrow under the ground, and we were walking around just to get to Hyde Park, which was down the road. And I was saying, I'm already functioning. I have this sort of language where I'm like, whatever you're already functioning in, you can make it into something. So I was already functioning with a passion to pastor artists. I was already doing missions. I was already doing these things. And I just said, I want to make it a charity. And so I applied to make artists, well, at the time it was Arts House International, but somebody else had that name, so it's now Artists House International. I applied for making a charity and sort of made it a bit more formal. But we would invite West End artists or anyone that was industry-based, that was a believer and an artist that would say, I'm doing this for my career. We would invite them over and I'd cook for them. And we would speak about some aspect of being a professional and a believer in the industry. And my husband would often lead worship. We'd have a meal together. At the beginning, it was fine because I was only feeding like a handful of people. And then it got so packed, like my apartment was packed and you couldn't fit any more people. So we moved it into the West End, into a little cafe, and people would start bringing and sharing, and we'd have these gatherings called Arts House. And we wanted community, because when you are strengthened by community, this is why it's so important. You have the strength to keep going. You can have somebody help carry the rejections as well as the successes. We have artists come that are very successful, and they have their own challenges and pain and the things they're going through, as well as joys, that they can often come and speak and share their own stories. So we would get them in, they would share. It would just be such an encouragement and fuel us. And I remember thinking at the end of every gathering, I feel so alive being with these people. These are my people. And we formed some amazing relationships. But from there, we were also heading over. It wasn't far from London, actually, flying over to the other side, towards France side. And we were involved in missions through Creative Arts Europe, and I still am to this day. So a big aspect of what we do is, that yes, the arts is my work, but I also use it as worship and I use it as a witness. So we would fly across and do a mission and spend a week giving out and take in West End artists or other artists with us, from dancers to actors to filmmakers, to teach these young people on these.
That's neat.
missions. And I tell you, they would be alive because not only were we together, but we were doing something other than trying to get work. And
Right. Yeah.
so,
That can be so life-giving to
it's so
pour
life-giving.
out, you know?
Yeah, although challenging because one of the actors, for example, she had major callbacks, like for Cats, like massive musical in the middle of it. So she's over trying to teach and she's flown back to London to do the callback and come back again at a minute's notice. So we get it, and we were like, we will make that work for you. We're not going to hold you to, I'll cover your classes today, whatever, because we get it.
Right.
This is what it's like.
Mm-hmm.
But there's so much life and joy in doing that. So yeah, we've got a few different hats, from community and community building and producing projects. Part of that was Project Dance, and then also flying across to do missions with young people using arts as a tool to help transform their lives. And we've seen that to be the most incredible fruit come from that.
Yeah, that is so cool. Super neat to hear about it.
It is,
and that definitely, I feel like, I'm like, oh, that sounds like something I want to go to, you know, just having community, having a meal, getting to talk and share. And that's such a neat, like you said, thing that you're probably just already doing, but to make it a little more formalized and be able to share more people. Yeah, I'm like, oh, I want to do that. That sounds really fun.
Absolutely. It is fun.
So cool. Have you heard of FaithBox? FaithBox is a monthly box subscription that helps you grow in your faith. Each box includes spiritually enriching devotionals, Christian books by your favorite authors, and exclusive eco-friendly products that do good for their community. Each FaithBox is built around a unique theme to help you live your faith values every day. To learn more about FaithBox, check out creativeimpactpodcast.com/FaithBox. Now back to my conversation with Lara. When you were starting Artist House International and kind of making it a little more formalized, did you face challenges in that, or was it a pretty smooth process going into kind of a charity setup?
Oh, no, one of the biggest challenges I think I've always faced is the amount of administration that I didn't do a business degree, you know. The funny thing is there's not many creatives that are actually performers. Some might go into it later, and that's great. But I was learning as I went and having to write documentation and like, who do you ring? And it's always been a lot more work than I could have ever imagined. So, you have to have these sort of legal documents and bank accounts, and so it's not easy. You don't just kind of ring someone, I want to be a charity. It's actually really hard. So I'd spend a lot of days just doing so much admin that I hated it.
You have to have a good bit of dedication to so this is really what I want to do. Yeah, exactly.
And I don't want to have to do the paperwork, but I want the outcome of the paperwork, so I would do it. But I hate it because I'd be like in my little flat in London sort of typing all this stuff out, wishing I was doing a class that day and thinking I should be doing a class that day. But also realizing that, you know, what I'm called to is multifaceted. It's not just one thing. And I really felt passionate about this as well. And I've always seen it as a whole thing. The juggle is hard, yes, but I've seen all of it as a whole, like that doing the missions, doing the industry, it's all the same thing to me. I don't see it as I wear this hat or I wear that hat. And that's the bit that's challenging, especially when I added having babies.
Yes. Whole nother element.
That brought a whole new bunch of challenges to everything.
In a beautiful way, but I'm sure hard too.
I joke to other mums, and you know, there's dads too, it affects dads too, but I'm like, I can do everything I did before, but now I just do it tired.
That's a good description. That's awesome.
That's right.
It's great that you and your husband are able to work together in ministry and also kind of just encourage each other. And I can imagine that having him and his support, you know, stepping into those things makes it a lot less maybe daunting. I could,
that's completely true for me. I really admire people that kind of up and move on their own. I mean, I did do that. I was in America on my own, but I knew the people I was coming into spend time with. I was certainly brave to do that, but I admire the people that sort of just up and move to a big city to completely
Yeah.
without knowing anybody. Like, I think, oh, that would be so hard.
Mm-hmm.
And I met so many people like that in London. But my husband I think one of the challenges for me is I have directionally, not like in the dance studio challenge, but geographically,
Oh, yeah.
I'm really bad. Like, I don't remember where I'm normally, because my head's off dreaming about some project, but I'm like, oh, I don't know where I am. And London at the beginning was like, oh, it's like, I don't know how to get home.
That would be really scary.
And so he would be like my navigation, literally. And he just helps me not get lost.
And do you want to share a little bit more about what he does? Because it sounded like he has a really great story as well, just even in his industry.
He's such a legend. Like, he moved initially to London for me, and he loved, like, he grew up acting and performing in musicals and singing barbershop, which is so cool. Mm-hmm. And then became a physiotherapist. Thank goodness, because two freelancers is challenging, and many listeners might relate to that. But he really still had this huge passion for the arts, and then marries me, and I had this dance studio at the time, and he would come in and teach clinical Pilates to the students to try and, treat the dancers, things like that. And then we moved to London, and I went in for a singing lesson, and the teacher was like, your larynx is sitting up a bit high, like my voice box for those who don't sing. And I went in, she said, go and see this physio in the West End on Harley Street, which is like the King's Speech is set on, that film is set on Harley Street. Yeah. It's a famous medical street. And I went in and I look, and there's all these files of all the musicals in the West End, from West Ends like Cats to Phantom of the Opera to Wicked to whatever. And I said to my husband, you have got to come to my next appointment.
Yeah.
So he came in and he sat there and he just watched quietly what they were doing, and they were treating my voice, which was this really unusual thing that we had never seen anywhere else in the world.
Super fascinating.
He got offered to go on tour with Swan Lake, but because we were married and we had just moved to London, I'm like, I don't want you to go on tour with Swan Lake. And we were really concerned because it was his dream job. Mm-hmm. But I said, me alone in London without you for 6 months, I just don't think I can do it. I just got here and I don't even know how to find my way around. You know what I'm like. He got offered a place in the clinic, and then after a while he started to oversee voice, and he got skilled by the founder of the Voice Physio, and he treated over 40 West End shows. He was speaking on the arts and how to work safely with, at Guildhall and these famous like arts colleges that people dream to be at, like the Juilliards of London.
Right.
and he just became this really, as he's called in the industry, smiling assassin, because he hurts people to get them better as a physical therapist or a physiotherapist. It's really special. And so he's got a real niche area that he works with professional artists as a physical therapist, physiotherapist. And I'm saying two words because it's different in different countries.
Gotcha, yes.
And the voice, the whole body, and he's really specialized, and he's just... Yeah, it's great. It feels like we're doing the same thing and that we're in the same industry.
Right. That is so neat. And I think that's really super cool. Great. We need people like him in those industries that are helping to keep people healthy and, increase longevity as well. So super neat. Yeah. So cool to hear about his story as well.
Yeah, he's really fun. And he gets it because he has us, us creative types on the bed in pain, sort of spilling their hearts out of us. How hard their life is all the time.
He totally understands. Yeah.
That's awesome. Comes home to me.
Right. That's funny. That's awesome though. Sounds like a really great person. So fun. Maybe we can have him on sometime. That would be really fun.
Yeah. Yes. You can ask him anything. And I'm really excited actually about, what we're going to do in the future. And he's involved in a musical that I'm involved in at the moment. So sometimes our paths kind of come together, and it's really exciting.
That is super exciting. So what are your, I guess, current and future plans right now or endeavors that you're in?
Oh, it's kind of really exciting because we're really praying about a few things. And we, probably being a podcast host myself, I think it really encourages me as well. Mm-hmm. But I really believe in being positioned and aligned where you can flourish. And we are constantly praying and looking and saying, are we flourishing in our gifts and our skills at the level that we believe we're called to? Mm. And it's a constant prayer for both of us. And so that's really been a question lately, that are we in the right alignment for this next season? And we're the kind of people that, when you sign up for the industry, you don't necessarily stay in one place because you might go on tour, and we've always traveled because of our careers.
Mm-hmm.
So yeah, we're just sort of looking at that because the musical, which is under embargo, so we can't actually say the name of the musical, but the musical we're involved in is going to launch in America.
Oh, neat.
So when we're allowed
to travel again. Yeah, that's true.
Yeah, so we'll at some point be back. It's not even across the pond. It's actually the other side of the globe, but we'll be back over for that. Really excited about it. And it's actually the story of the musical. It's a new musical we're really passionate about. It's a real musical for our times. And I love story that's got power to transform. I like gritty stories that have some, as well as just pure entertainment sometimes.
Right, like
fun,
the substance and depth to it.
Yeah, mm-hmm. Absolutely, where you come out and you think, I've been changed for the better.
Yeah.
Which sounds like a line from Wicked the musical.
I love Wicked, yeah. So good. Yeah. I actually traveled with my students. I direct a dance team, and we took a trip to New York right before everything shut down. So literally we were there like March 4th through 7th, got to enjoy Wicked, and we saw Aladdin on Broadway and just take classes, and it was so much fun. So,
and then you wouldn't have known that would be your last trip.
I'm like, I guess that was our finale. It was our big hurrah right before everything closed. Yeah. So, but it was a beautiful time.
That's a good finale.
Yes, for sure. Well, I know you touched on this a little bit. I would love to talk to you more about just your experience as an artist and then becoming a wife and a mom, and that integrating being a mom with your work as well. What does that look like?
Yeah. Like I'm always really honest. When I had my first child, Raphael, in London, I would try to keep everything the same in my life. And I believed with all my heart I could. And I could. With one child, I was doing okay. Like I would still cart him in, we call it a buggy, or I think you call it a stroller. Mm-hmm. I'd cart him into the West End to our artist house gatherings and make him sort of sleep in there and have all these kind of creatives around. And I remember some people really admiring I remember I was producing Project Dance in London as well. And I would take him in he was 5 months old, and I would take him to everything. But I'm telling you, it was hard because I would keeping them, not just keeping them quiet, like, this is my life, you need to be quiet and fit in, but keeping them settled and happy and watered and fed and all those things. And then trying to produce event, it's difficult. And then when I had my second child in London 14 months later, which was a crazy close, that's when I went, I can't keep my life the way it was at all.
That pace. And
I can't, because I tried, but I had a really difficult second child, and that she wasn't a feeding, and I don't want to bore the listeners with that story, but it basically meant that I didn't sleep at all. Mm-hmm. And so I had 2 children, and my husband was going to work all day, and I'm literally at one point, I remember that's how crazy and driven I was, that I went to an audition with 2 children and put them in the room with me on the side, and I did the audition. However, the producers are going to think, oh, she can't get a sitter. Why would I hire her? But I'm still like, I'm showing up because I have an audition and this is what I do.
Right.
I found it really hard to lay it down. And to be honest with you, I never laid it down. Yeah. I ended up getting an au pair because I didn't have any family to help support, because we had moved our lives away to pursue our career and our calling, and so we didn't have any kind of free babysitting. So we had a live-in au pair for quite a few years, and that meant I could do everything I wanted again, which is great. So I would go and do a class and come home, and so I could kind of make that work for freelance life. That's not for everybody. It was actually very affordable, more affordable than the hourly rate, because they're living with you.
Yeah.
So I did that for my remainder of my years in London, and then we moved to Melbourne, which is Australia's arts capital, but it's debatable because it's also Sydney.
Yeah.
And I continue to have to, like, whenever something comes up, I'm on the phone to I've got a list on speed dial of potential nannies, and I'm like, can you come over? And then I'm thinking, I've got to pay. So it's like another expense to do an audition. Mm-hmm. So there is actually a lot of challenges in career. But when I think about my life, and I think when I'm 70, maybe older, I don't know, I still plan to be acting. I want to be Judi Dench.
Yes.
When I'm that age, I don't want to regret not being available to my children. And I know that I won't care about whether I got another contract. I will only care about whether my children that are now grown up want anything to do with me. So in terms of priorities, I absolutely know that my children are far more important than my career, hands down. But it's a sort of cycle where I go, if I'm going to go on mission, I'm not going to leave them behind every time.
Yeah.
I'm going to take them with me, which we've done in Bulgaria, and push them in prams past people eating out of bins, as well as past the Eiffel Tower the week before.
Yeah.
Like they've experienced everything. And my husband and I, we're just a team, and we just kind of grit our way through all the challenges of that, the long flights of not sleeping on the plane or watching movies because you're keeping them settled, the extra cost you have to raise to take them as well. Because 100% they are, them being a part of my life and me continuing with what I do is going to bless them because they get brought in rather than my life stops. And as a performer, a lot of people do lay down their gift. But as you know, as a dancer and a singer, and those skills very quickly rust. So it's not as simple as I'm going to leave my job in this sort of office and come back to it. It doesn't work that way for the arts.
Right.
This thing, your body will disintegrate. So it's definitely unique. But I'm so determined to do all of it. But my biggest thing is I got to bring them with me as much as possible. Not to auditions every time.
Right.
That's not good form. But as much as possible, they're included. Like my son this afternoon has a callback for something.
Oh, that's so sweet. How old is he now?
So he's 6. He's got a call back for a TV show, and he's going to be doing that this afternoon. And my daughter as well, she loves dancing. And so I do ballet with her at home when I'm doing my class. So
that's so
there's
fun.
A lot of things. Yeah, they kind of see us do. And I think it's this beautiful circle of juggle and sometimes mess and sometimes really beautiful balance. And that's okay. All of it's fine.
Right.
It looks like what it looks like.
Part of the journey. Yeah. And that's I can definitely see how them going along with you and going along for the journey and being a part of the mission, I think that will really feed into their lives as well, and you know, become a part of their heart for others and for mission and for the arts and everything.
Yeah, and it's actually the model of the founder of Creative Arts Europe or Creative Missions who said to me, people seeing you here with your family is a testimony to good family and is a witness in itself. And he allowed us to do it. So even if I was the only one teaching, he would still let my husband and children come where other people wouldn't. And so the model of bringing them really came from somebody who knows how important it is for people to see healthy family. And it definitely encourages other people to say, you know, maybe that's what I'd like one day or I could work towards.
Right. So. Yeah, I think family is so important, and there's
it is
definitely a battle against family, I feel like, right now in the world, or just
absolutely
in general in history maybe. But, you know, it's just really good to encourage that and it builds strong.
And I really believe in that. It's really important to me.
That's beautiful. I would love to hear kind of what your word of encouragement would be if we could have whoever's listening right across the table from us, you know, on the Zoom call. What's something maybe on your heart that you'd like to share?
Yeah, I think for me as a creative, that's pretty driven, that the most important thing is that you're never not working. And I'm not talking about seasons of rest that everybody needs, because I've too have approached those places of burnout and needed to really rest and recharge. So it's not that situation that I'm speaking about, but the day-to-day life of being a creative and the juggles and the challenges of whether you have something that you're able to go and get paid for or not. I believe you're always working towards what you're doing and creating, whether you're a writer and you're just writing with the fact that might not be published, or you're a dancer and you're just doing a class that day. Sometimes just doing class is lonely, so I think it's always good to try to get community. And on that point, don't be the person who always sits back and waits for somebody else to invite you in. It's hard, because how vulnerable do we need to make ourselves to get on the phone and say, or text or whatever, and say, hey, do you want to have a coffee? And I do that. And I've been doing that a bit lately, because I'm like, we're like-minded. And being around you is going to energize me, and hopefully I energize you.
Mm-hmm.
And maybe, just maybe, we'll do some projects together.
Right.
If that relationship goes somewhere. But at the very least, and it's a wonderful list, we will enjoy each other as company today because we're kindred spirits and we both love the arts and we love Jesus and we love. And you're not going to always find that necessarily in church. It might be, you might be lucky enough to have other people around you that really encourage you there. But if you don't, that shouldn't stop you.
Mm-hmm.
I think it's so important because the arts is collaborative primarily. So you cannot be in isolation all the time.
Right.
Like we are in isolation right now, but in terms of relationship, community, because the community births projects.
That's so good.
So definitely be vulnerable and reach out and say, let's just catch up. Or I've got an idea for a project, who wants to be involved? And then if you are rejected, brace yourself for it. I can't just say a simple, God, all your identity needs to be in God, because it does.
Mm-hmm.
But the practical steps to healing that, you've got to go after it. You've got to chase that healing and that sense of worth. And actually take the hard words sometimes. Like when someone's said to me like some cruel things that no girl wants to hear, like you are the wrong size for this role, for example.
Yeah.
When you hear those things, actually go, you know what, in terms of casting as a product, what do I fit? And take the hard word and either do something about it or change to become, if you can. And it's like maybe they're saying your dance is not strong enough or your voice isn't quite there. You've got to take that word and work on your skill and not just go, oh, God will do it for me. Because my journey is that we have to still do the hard work as believers. So I don't super spiritualize my gifts.
Yeah.
But at the same time, I have a supernatural God who loves me and can make a way for me. But he is so much more about what's going on in my heart and my heart journey. And that's individual for each person, what he might be calling you to do.
Yeah.
So definitely, yeah. So that would be a bit of a lot of things in.
I love that. So good. They are all connected.
Kind of my encouragement. Yeah, they're all connected. They really are. And the day to day, I realize I wake up thinking about my creativity and what can I do towards it today. I've started recently streamlining it a bit more and kind of having a more kind of, this is my goal today. This is what I want to do today towards my creativity, and trying to make it a little bit more streamlined rather than just sort of floating around.
Whatever happens.
That's taken me years to come to that point. But I'm glad I act, because I don't think you'll ever expire, because, they're going to have grandmas. I'm always like, I'll be the grandma on Billy Elliot one day when I'm still doing this. No one will be left to audition. It's like, I'll be the last one standing.
Sometimes that's really where it's at, is just, staying consistent, staying committed. Yeah. And a lot of times it's that commitment, and it may be just your willingness to stick it out. That's really, for a lot of people, that gets you into those opportunities. So that's so
absolutely neat. Yeah, that's me.
That's so cool. Well, you're such a lovely personality and so fun to talk to. And one thing that I like to ask all of the guests that come on is, what is one of your favorite things right now?
It's funny because I am really, really obsessed with the arts. And when people even ask me what my hobbies are, I'm like, I don't think I have any hobbies, because all I do from day to day is I'm either singing or I'm acting or I'm writing or I'm doing a Pilates because I like dancing and I want to be able to dance. So it's funny because I think because of that, I don't have anything else that I sort of do, but I do love putting on headphones, blocking out the world and putting on worship music and walking in nature. That's something that sometimes it takes me a bit to get out the door, because I've got to leave my achieving behind for a minute. But when I'm there, I just feel like my mental health is in a better place, and I'm more connected to God. So I'd say I love that. And then the obvious things that everybody loves, like a good Netflix binge every now and then. Watching, I think it's Agent Carter at the moment on the Disney Channel. So fun. And, I know it's not the best use of always, but it's nice to have some balance.
Yes.
Sink into a good series.
Exactly.
Although I'd be analysing their acting and looking at who cast it. That's definitely part of it.
Yep.
Yeah, absolutely love that. And I love all the normal things that girls and no chocolate, not everyone. Cynthia Newland, she's more of a savoury too.
Yeah. I love
And
chocolate,
I'm
though.
obsessed. Yeah. My husband and I are real coffee nerds as well. Like we love flat white. We order beans. We grind our beans.
Oh, nice.
And then we make this gorgeous coffee every day.
So fancy.
That's not
That's
something
so
I'm
fun.
willing to lay down.
Love that. So are you the kind of person that when you go to a new place, you like to try out the different like local coffee shops there?
Oh, we have so many funny stories, which I won't share. All that when we were in America, we were like, can we have a flat white? And so many places don't know what that is because I don't know if it's New Zealand or Australia. I'm sure the listeners know, but it's a drink that comes from this end of the world.
Okay.
So when you're over in America, it can be hard to get a good flat white. So we went into the cafes there when we were over in December and we actually taught the barista how to make it.
Oh, that's so cool.
It was so funny. And they were such good sports because they were like, and my husband's sort of like, then you do this. And they did a good job.
That's good. That's so neat.
So I can't say we go around trying the coffee because the best coffee for us is in Melbourne. But Europe doesn't really do Australian sort of style coffee.
Gotcha.
It's black, that's not our coffee favorites.
Right. That's so fun. So you don't necessarily try it, but you help make it. Help get it together. That's so great.
Fix the problem.
Love it. Well, this has been so much fun. And I would love for people to get connected in with you and be able to check out your podcasts and then also Dance Informa. So where can people find you?
Yeah, well, our website is artists with an S, houseinternational.com. And on there you'll find links to our podcast. And then Dance Informa is really easy because it's Dance Informa. Well, actually, it's in the US. If you just type in Dance Informa magazine, whether it's US or it's Australia, we have 2 editions.
Okay.
You'll find. And the news columns, what I'm doing for them, and that's exciting because it's sort of daily, like putting things out for news and writing sometimes stories. There's a really good one called Dancers Quit Stretching that I wrote recently, which is, if you put it into the search, you'll find. So there's some fun things. And the Vic Dance podcast, you'll find where you find good podcasts as well. Okay. So it's Vic Dance VIC Dance Podcast.
Sounds great. Well, thank you so much for taking time out of your day to talk. And it's so fun connecting with you and just getting to finally put a face with a name. So thank you.
Thank you.
So much fun getting to know Lara. She truly is a kindred spirit. I pray her story inspires you today to continue in your daily work and foster community right where you are. You can find links from the show and the full show notes on our website. I'm so excited to finally announce our giveaway winner. Our winner is receiving the beautiful Names of God calligraphy print from Caitlin Harbaugh at the Little Blue Desk. Thank you, Caitlin, for your generosity in donating this beautiful print. Drum roll, please. Our giveaway winner is Cian Smith. Congratulations, Cian! Thank you to everyone who entered, and be listening for our next giveaway coming soon. Next week, my guest for the show is Shizu Yasuda. Shizu is the artistic director of Adeum 2 Dance Company and a former principal dancer with Adeum Dance Company. Thank you for listening to the Creative Impact Podcast. The music for the show was produced by Michael Cash. Share the show with a friend, and I'll see you next week for my conversation with Shizu Yasuda.